Hey everyone, it's Gene Marks and Ben Schreiner back with you. And welcome to Ahead in the Cloud, a podcast for small business owners and managers that want to stay current on technology. This podcast, everyone, is brought to you by the AWS Connected community. It's a free online community that's built by AWS, but powered by its members, where you can get free expert advice, training, and peer-to-peer interaction to help with all your technology questions. Let's get it started. First of all, Claire, just a little bit of an introduction to you. So you're the head of Worldwide SMB Segment Strategy. So if I can ask you first, can you describe for us what that means?
Yeah, it's really a fabulous place to be here at AWS because I get to work with our customers, partners, and team members from all across the world, really helping them to set goals, to look around corners and understand what's next for our customers, build the strategy, not just from the perspective of how we interact with customers, but also even what products we might build and what services we might offer. So yeah, it's a very exciting place to be. I've been doing it for a couple of years and I really love it.
I'm glad that you're there. And Ben, what is the pinball machine behind you? What's going on there?
So Gene, you know this about me. I am a nerd,
You
and
are.
that is 40th anniversary Star Wars, the movie that changed, many of our lives for those that are in my age bracket. And so that's my homage to Star Wars and the best break between video calls, if I'm honest.
Here, by the way, side story here. A few years ago, this was like before COVID. I was speaking to a group in Houston, Texas, and it was on a Saturday. It's like on a Sunday, so I had to stay over Saturday night, and it was very depressing because I was, who wants to be away, on a Saturday night? And in the hotel I was staying at, the Texas Pinball Association was having their annual event, and you paid like. It was unreal. You paid like $30 and you went into this huge, meeting room, and there were like dozens and dozens of pinball machines, and you could just play there all night, and they had a bar there. It was awesome. So Nirvana. So I'm as big a nerd as you when it comes to that kind of stuff. So it's very cool. Okay. Well, we're here to talk about AWS and the connected community and really, small businesses and the challenges they're facing. And Claire, I'm going to turn to you first. Before we get started on this conversation, you were telling me that you've got, you really have 3 takeaways that you would really like our audience to walk away with. So, for those of you guys watching this conversation or listening to this conversation, let me ask Claire, share with us all, what do you want to make sure that we walk away with after we're done talking?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. One of the things that I want to almost surprise the audience with is that you're probably already using AWS and you don't know it. And this is because more apps work on AWS and have been built on AWS than any other place. I mean, we're really known for having startups build their apps on our platform, but also across all even traditional companies, we're known for being the place where builders come and can build modern apps. So we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you're probably already on AWS, and maybe you didn't even know what AWS stood for before this conversation. That's some of what I encounter with small, medium businesses. Sometimes it's the biggest question: what does AWS stand for? Amazon Web Services, just to make sure you know. The second takeaway is that you're on these apps, but you probably are encountering some issues, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And because these apps sit on AWS, we can help you have them work better together. Let me say that again. Because these apps are already on AWS, we can help them work better together. And then the third takeaway is that you mentioned that this is part of our connected community. And I want to point out some resources at the end, also a little bit of a surprise of some really special things that we have available for our customers that are related to these business apps we're going to talk about.
That's perfect. So, just going to the first, item, and Ben, I'm going to turn to you as well. I mean,
Sure.
I find that a lot of my clients are using applications. They're not developers, but they're already using applications that are already on the AWS platform, and they don't even know that. Should they care, Ben? Does that make a difference in my life?
You know what? It should they care? We love it when they don't know and everything just works, right? Like ideally, the technology just solves What's the problem that it was purchased to solve? I would say this for customers. I think they should know, and I do think they should care, because the reliability that AWS provides is unparalleled. The operational resilience. So those apps that you're using, Gene, they need to work, right? And if you were using an app that maybe was hosted somewhere else, perhaps that would be cause for concern, or at least, again, if you're the small business owner, you need to be aware of the risk, because you've effectively outsourced your IT to these providers and you're dependent on them providing it. And I'll give you a very good example. My lovely wife, Laura, is working on a home remodel, and she's looking for stone at a granite yard. And the granite yard cannot sell her the stone because the provider of their inventory management system had a ransomware attack. It's a hosted service, ransomware. All of the small businesses that use this inventory do not have access to their data. They don't know their inventory, the pricing, all of that. And so they're really, like, I'm super empathetic, and it's causing stress for my wife, which is their customer. And so in that regard, Gene, I do think it's important for the audience to ask those questions. You should know if the vendor you're going with is in AWS or where your data is, and whether or not you get a sense of comfort from the answer to that question. We talked in a previous episode about security and resilience, and I think, again, those two things are top priorities for us. And I do think the audience should be aware.
Claire, on that same topic. So, I recently had a client. It's a small nonprofit. They have like 25 employees, and they're moving to a nonprofit based sort of billing and management platform. But there are a lot of, as there's a proliferation of small companies out there that are providing software solutions, great ones. All sorts of things. Which is fine. But I kind of think that if you're a smaller company yourself and you're looking to put your entire business onto somebody else's software solution, one of the big questions you should be asking is, okay, well, where is your solution hosted, right, Claire? Because that impacts your business in a big way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think Ben said it really well about the resiliency of what we can offer, as well as security. Those are good reasons to ask what where these apps are sitting. But even beyond that, we can provide a lot of opportunity for people who build their apps to build them in a way that solves business problems for small and medium businesses. And that's what I think is a lot of the sort of secret sauce that we have at AWS, that we don't have just like one size fits all approach to business problems. We have so many different applications built on AWS that address specific use cases and specific niches. I know, like nonprofits, for example, I was just talking to Sage yesterday, and Sage has like fabulous solutions for nonprofits, right? And they specialize in that. And that's just a tiny example of literally the tens of thousands of different use cases we can address. So I think that is something for small and medium businesses to think about, is start with what their business priorities are, and then we can help them. We have tools at AWS, self-service tools, and also our own experts to help them think about what those business use cases are, work backwards from their problems, and choose the right apps. And beyond that, maybe I should get into this in a little bit, but it's not just about the apps. I would bet that they have problems logging into every single app that they have, right? Like, oh my gosh, I forgot my password. I've got 12 different passwords. Our research shows that on average, small, medium businesses have 12.1 apps. We'll go with 12. That's a lot to manage, especially if you don't have the skills in-house and an IT team to do that. You might only have one IT person.
Claire, we just write all the passwords down on the piece of paper right over here. That's what we do. We just write it down.
Or just use just use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, that always works for me,
Or password one.
Password. Yeah.
Yeah.
password one. That's always good. Claire, if I, say I say to this client, this nonprofit client, I say, listen, you got to ask the software provider where their software is hosted. Obviously, you don't want it hosted in their, on a server in the guy's garage. I mean, it should be at a reputable big plot like an AWS. So then my client does, and then the person says, yes, our platform is hosted on AWS. What does that mean for my client, though? I mean, we touched on a few of these things, but in the end, like, so my client comes back to me and says, yeah, okay, so they said it's hosted on AWS. What does that, so what? What does that give me? Tell me a little bit of what that means.
Hey, Claire, I'll take that one if that's all right.
Okay, go ahead, Ben.
Gene, a peace of mind, right? I mean, that's actually what we want the audience to come away with is AWS to provide a level of peace of mind. We have more software providers on our platform than anyone else. We have the largest ecosystem, and again, highest level of security. We're putting more security effort to keep the infrastructure safe than anyone else could afford to do on their own accord. And then that operational resiliency is there. If they get an answer that's not AWS or a company they've never heard of, that should be a red flag, Gene, right? Like if I've never heard of the provider, then the next line of questioning should be, tell me more about your uptime or your downtime, right? And how frequently do you have outages? There's, again, lots of reports of managed service providers and hosting. There's a big hosting company that also had a ransomware issue that led to users not having access to their email for many months on end, which you're a small business, like you communicate with your customers via email. If you couldn't get to your email because of where the provider had put it or effectively not protected it sufficiently, it could put you out of business or out of touch with your customers, and no small or medium business can afford that. So I think it's paramount, to know the answer, and then you're making a choice, right? And if you have several choices that you're choosing between, this should be an important factor on making that final choice is having that comfort. The last thing I'll add is if you are a small and medium business and your product is software, which a lot, Gene, your own company, does software implementation. So if it is software, we see a lot of folks starting with AWS because often you have to change the software to become software as a service, to be multi-tenanted. It's a new way of doing things to serve more customers in a SaaS, truly modern way where you can provide a subscription and you update once and everybody gets the updates. It's not like the old client server where you have people on 19 different versions of your software because they haven't upgraded for 5 or 10 years. They start with us, but very few small and medium business, technology companies can afford to rewrite their app 2 or 3 times to work on all of the different, big providers, right? So we see our ecosystem as usually the first place, many software organizations go, which for our small and medium business customers leads to a very rich set of choices to pick from and leverage, right? So it kind of becomes a flywheel for us where they start with us and then it gives our customers more choice, which means there's more customers, which is why more software companies want to be on us. So it again becomes that flywheel that really leads to, again, a better economic situation for everyone.
Ben, that really summarizes things really well. And I kind of want to leverage that just a little bit, Claire. Like when I talk to my clients, you and I have never really personally met. My company, we implement CRM solutions. Okay. So we implement some of the larger names that are out there, and a lot of times people ask about, we've got the CRM, but we also have an accounting solution and we have a HR solution and we have, all that. And it seems like the world is going more towards, you align with, a technology company that you trust. and you involve yourself in the technologies that they sell. I mean, a lot of the CRM solutions that I sell, the same companies also offer accounting solutions and management solutions and all.
Yeah.
And I know that there's trade-offs, but it just seems like a smoother and easier path. And isn't that the same? Do you feel the same way when it comes to like even like people that are developing software applications as a business? Doesn't it make sense to say, listen, you got to pick like a platform like an AWS, and you got to lean into that because that's the most efficient thing to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Makes perfect sense. And it really gets to that point, the second takeaway I wanted everyone to have here, which is these apps work better together with
Yes.
a single platform underlying them, right? Because then you can get at a common infrastructure and you can do things in a simpler way that maybe an individual app developer didn't think about. There's really, it's funny, like some very simple examples like approval workflows, right? So often that needs to pull data from different apps in order to have a full workflow to do a quick and easy approval. And so often we see that companies aren't able to do that out of the box. And that's one of the big challenges with apps, right? Is that companies want them to be bespoke, but at the same time, they want them out of the box. I mean, you must run into that all the time. So how do you balance that, from your perspective of profitability? How can you offer that customization to get at their specific use cases and the business outcomes they want, but still have it be quick and easy, low maintenance to manage all of those things. And that's where the advantage of having them all built on AWS really comes in. I've seen our customers work successfully with what we call managed service providers. A lot of times it's just like their IT provider, right? Our research shows that sure, more than 80% of SMBs enter the cloud at first through what we call SaaS apps, software as a service, which just think of it as apps in the cloud. But also more than 50% of them are using some kind of a managed service provider. But a lot of times these managed service providers haven't yet moved their business to the cloud. They don't understand how to take advantage of having that single platform and all of these apps built on that. But we can help them with that too. So I imagine you have a lot of small IT companies who are your viewers, and I want to say that the connected community is for them also, because we can help them start to build those cloud services use cases for their existing small and medium business customers to do things like build workflows that pull data across from multiple different apps to solve that problem.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because more and more of the IT people that we deal with, and I get leads and referrals from IT firms in the Philly area, where I'm from, and more of them are they say they're aligned with AWS or other cloud providers. It's just becoming a natural thing, right? I mean, Ben, don't you think like if you were running a small business and you were going to be working with an IT firm, you would be asking them like, well, are you aligned with any cloud providers? Like, what is your background infrastructure? It doesn't seem like an obvious
Gene. I mean,
thing
it's a prudent question to ask, right? Because you're entrusting these experts because technology maybe isn't your core business, and you're relying on their expertise, and you would want to validate that they're going with the best. They're getting you. I mean, this isn't something that you want the discount bargain bin flavor of, because again, you can't sacrifice on security, right? So I do think, again, any prudent business owner is trying to protect and needs to protect the business that they're building, right? And all of us are trying to grow our business. Every audience member is trying to grow their business, and you want to be with a provider that you can grow with. And that's one of the big powers of the cloud is aligning the expense side of the house with the revenue side of the house. And the cloud gives you that ability to actually grow and expand. As your business expands, your expenses go up in line, but it's not like the traditional, on-prem world where you'd have to buy servers or rent them from a hosting place, and it would just be there whether you had customers or didn't have customers. You still have that fixed, kind of capital upfront cost, and that's really, again, what's changed with AWS and the cloud, making it much easier for small and medium businesses to get started and to expand. I mean, everybody hears these stories about the unicorn home run that, overnight they're instant success and everything explodes, right? And And the worst thing you could do is not serve all of those customers because some viral TikTok video went crazy and now your product everybody wants. You need shipping, accounting, and all those things to kind of be able to support you. And that, again, from a technology point of view, that scalability is just something that we have over decades developed and just really refined to really make it so that our customers don't have to worry. The scale is there, right? And really they can focus on, how do I grow my business? Because that's the best use of a proprietor's time, is how do I grow my business?
I want to jump on that one comment that you just made, Ben, and Claire, I'll direct this to you. I mean, most of my clients, if they do need a software solution or some type of solution to do something, whether it's because people have proprietary ways of doing order management or managing their employees or collaboration, things like that, and they want to develop their own solutions or even add on to solutions that they already have. Across the board, my clients are like Ben just said. I mean, they want to focus on their business. I mean, these are people running they're like exactly. Distributors, they're manufacturers. They're like, they know that they don't know anything about technology, which gets me back to the point, there is a wide, I mean, Claire, there is a wide network, a wide channel, a community, right, of AWS certified people or knowledgeable people.
Absolutely.
They're part of the connected community. I mean, so it's like a business owner doesn't have to be on their own to do this, right? I mean, they've got resources, right?
Yeah, we have so many resources, and those resources aren't just coming directly from AWS. I think it's really important that they're coming from the largest network of IT. We call them partners, but they're IT providers of different kinds, in the world, really, that work with AWS. So, yeah, we're there with our partners hand in hand to help these small businesses, and we've been working with small businesses from the very beginning, from the inception of AWS. We like to think about it, and I think Ben was talking about how we can scale up, scale down. A lot of times, we at AWS think about that from our own services directly, right? But in this episode of the podcast, we're talking more about apps that have been built on AWS, things like Sage or Zendesk or Adobe, like these apps are things that people use every day, that the small business doesn't need to really worry too much, because these app creators have developed their apps in such a way to take advantage of all of the services. And they continue to do that. We continue to help them with innovation in particular, so that things like Gen AI features can be incorporated into their apps to, again, solve the specific use cases that these small businesses have.
You mentioned Gen AI, and we don't have to go off on too much of a tangent here, but I do get a lot of questions from my clients, and I was just speaking to this group. It was like a 300-person, group of CPAs in North Carolina just this week about Gen AI and AI in general. I'm just kind of curious, Claire, your thoughts on AI. Like, how do you think that will change, how you guys are, the kinds of services that AWS is providing to its clients? Where do you see that going, or where is it heading already?
Yeah, we've been providing AI services to our clients, particularly to the app developers, like I was talking about, for years now. And I think Gen AI is kind of a hot topic from the public perspective, because there's some toys that people can play with, but the real power underneath has been there all along. And we provide a wide range for developers to take advantage of our services to fine tune what they are trying to do, right? But some of the examples that we've been doing for a while, and I think are only going to get more sophisticated as these large language models get bigger, and as we have more different kinds of large language models that developers can take advantage of, are things like, I bet all of your customers have a security camera somewhere in their business, right? And they're probably not doing much with the data that's coming from that video footage. But I've seen some super interesting things where, even like a restaurant I worked with in Singapore, they were taking that footage and then running it through one of our services that allowed them to identify the traffic flows into their counter, and also measure sentiment of their customers so that they could optimize the customer experience. And that's another thing where our research shows that improving customer experience is one of the top business challenges that small businesses have.
Yeah, Gene, just to take that a
Keep going,
step
Ben. I was
further.
gonna come to you, Ben, with
Just
yeah,
to
go
build,
ahead.
right? I mean, it's a great example Claire just gave.
It is.
If somebody pauses at a display, if they're checking out a sale rack, but also just traffic, time of day, which
Yeah,
day leads to optimizing staffing, right? Like all
exactly.
businesses, like you have these costs, which are your people and your inventory, and how do you optimize both of those things to operate as efficiently as possible, and again, even identify, hey, I'm almost out of this particular product. There's nothing worse than somebody comes into your store to buy something specific that you're supposed to have and you don't have it, right? You lost that sale and potentially maybe that customer, because they're dissatisfied or they go somewhere else to buy it, right? So using computer vision to just be smarter about how your business is managed, I think is a really exciting area. The other one I'd touch on is this. While a lot of the audience maybe doesn't have a developer on staff, we see a lot of small companies that are starting to make that investment to have someone that is connecting these, let's call it 12 apps together so that they talk to each other. And our recent release of Code Whisperer, which is a coding assistant, would allow someone with some coding background to actually be infinitely more proficient, right? Like you're going from, high school education to master's degree in computer science, perhaps, as far as productivity jump, and allow them to actually do more without having to have, years and years of coding background. So I'm excited about what that could do for a lot of our customers out there.
Agree, and I want people that are watching or listening to this to know that it's a significant trend. I mean, the low code, no code trend in technology is one where, like you just said, Ben, you don't have to spend money or get somebody of a high expertise that's like some experienced developer to do a lot of these integrations or customizations or even development work. There are just tools, so many tools coming out now. AWS provides a bunch of them. I'm looking at some CRM systems that are sort of low code, no code platforms that also, and it just gives you the ability as a business owner to say, hey, you know what, I can hire somebody that's, like you said, maybe out of high school or somebody that like is into technology, but doesn't have to be some kind of coding genius because the tools enable them to do stuff that only very experienced developers could do just a few years ago,
Exactly right.
There's so many other questions I have just about this, but Ben, I have to go with you just with two comments. Also, you and I had a previous conversation for another episode that we did about AI and why it's proliferating. And when I spoke to this group just the other day, you were the one that brought up and said, well, AI is proliferating for three big reasons. I mean, one, the cost of storage is come down to next to nothing. It's out there. The cost of processing has declined to next to nothing. And then AWS, the cloud itself has just exploded, server farms everywhere, the delivery of data and the speed of delivery of data because of the cloud. All those three things kind of came together to create this perfect storm that creates this environment for all this artificial intelligence, because it needs large language model databases, it needs fast processing, and it needs to be able to be delivered from anywhere, which is what the cloud does. And I guess my point is to both you and Ben, you and Claire, Ben, is as AI develops and these AI development tools expand and proliferate, it's even more important to make sure that you're doing business with an AWS, a platform like that, because you guys are going to be the first ones that are going to be having those tools available to your customers. Do you have any comments on that? Or Claire, do you want to comment on that?
I actually have a comment on that
Sure.
occurred to me is, I play around with a lot of the Gen AI tools myself. I've played with all of them now, and there's so many, and I just see them proliferating every day where I'm starting to wonder which one should I use in which situation. And I think the power of AWS is that we help these apps put them in the right context. I think that's a important point that gets left out. So if I think about Notion is one that I like to play around with. I use the app Notion all the time. And Notion gives Notion is at its at the bottom denominator is just a note-taking app, but you can do so much more with it. You basically can build your own relational database with just a few clicks in it. And it's a great way, if you've heard of like Second Brain, it's a great way to kind of organize your second brain. But they've just introduced.
Might be a
I
bigger
thought the second brain was my stomach.
Yeah.
Like I've heard, like I don't know what you're
Is that
talking
what
about,
I hear?
Claire, but second brain is his stomach.
And you should stop. I mean, listen, you with your pinball stuff, I think Claire is becoming more of a bigger geek than you are, so she can take the prize.
I'm such a geek. Yeah, you guys.
Yeah.
I know you talked about being nerds, but I'm. You don't know what a nerd.
She's in the club, Gene. She's definitely in the club.
Yeah.
So
but
Claire,
just
go ahead.
I just want to give you the one example of Notion. It's a small example, but that's where you've seen some of the things like where Gen AI can create text, right, and help you write documents. Well, that's embedded in Notion in such a way that it makes sense in the right, it's at the right time. It's the right thing at the right time when you're thinking about it. So that's the biggest issue that people have is what do I use Gen AI for? How do I prompt it? How do I ask it correctly? Well, we can help our developers take advantage of that power by bringing context to it and building it into workflows. So I think that's an important point that I don't hear about a lot.
You said that, and I do have to say to you, Claire, as a wish list, I mean, you just mentioned this reminds me of like, when the iPhone first came out and there was like a zillion mobile apps that came, you just didn't even know what to use and what was good and what was bad or whatever. Yeah. So I guess as a fan and as a client of AWS, my ask of you is that the more that AWS can do to point its small business customers towards the apps and the technologies, whether it's AI based or not, that will help them run their business. Like we're kind of trusting you. Like what tell us what would work best, so I don't have to waste all this time evaluating them. That would be an amazing service, and I'm assuming that's something that is something that you're doing already, right?
There's a space for that, Gene. It's called the connected community.
Yeah, I was stole my thunder, Ben.
Teed it up perfect.
Yeah, and that's a great way to kind of conclude, I think, because we'd love to send people to the connected community to sign up to be a member. It's free. And I mentioned at the beginning, there'd be sort of a special surprise at the end of one of the benefits that you get. But some of our biggest apps are offered in the connected community with discounts. So Freshworks, Notion are a couple of examples, and there's new ones all the time. So customers can take advantage of that. And so they can go in and actually purchase these apps through our marketplace, but starting from the connected community, so they can get a special discount that's only available to members, right? So I think that's really nice. And we also have training that used to only be available to enterprise clients, like the biggest Fortune 500 clients, and very expensive, one-on-one. Ben knows because his team delivers this kind of training. But we've really worked hard to create it in such a way that it's bite-sized, that it still brings the main concepts to small businesses, and that they can access it through our connected community. It's called Culture of Innovation, so they can look that up once they get on there. And we have a lot of peer-to-peer kinds of things. In fact, later today, I'm doing a fireside chat with one of our customers, Arlington Economic Development team, and the work that they're doing to help small businesses in Arlington, Virginia, and all these kinds of, like peer-to-peer, here's what we're doing, here's how we took advantage of everything AWS has to offer is available there as well. So I hope people can sign up. I don't know if we're not flashing like the URL. I'm pretty sure if you
search in post-production, we're going to be putting that stuff up.
Okay, good, great.
So we'll definitely get it up there.
Cool.
And also, I was going to say as well, but again, people want to join the connected community. I'll mention this right as we wrap up in a minute or two. Is just Googling AWS connected community just takes me.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. It may, instead of like some long URL, it just gets me right there. All right, Claire. So final word. You said the takeaways at the very beginning. Let me ask you for them again, just to make sure that we're all in agreement that we've accomplished our objectives for this conversation. What were the 3 takeaways again?
I love it. So the first takeaway is you're probably using AWS already, and you don't even know it because you're using apps that are built on AWS. Right. Second takeaway is that these apps can work better together than they're working independently because they all sit on AWS, and because we have such a rich ecosystem of IT providers that can help you stitch them together to solve business problems and to do automation. And then the third takeaway is we've got lots of resources to help you with this in our connected community.
Ben, final word on what Star Wars episode you recommend the most on Apple TV. Is there anything that comes to mind?
Honestly, I mean, I'm just a traditionalist with the movies themselves.
Me too.
Mandalorian, come on, Mandalorian.
You know,
That's
everybody talks about the
favorite.
Mandalorian, and I'm like Ben, I'm like, enough is enough. Like, I like the movies. Let's stop there. It seems like it's gone out of control.
How many times can you? I don't like watching the same thing over and over again. Like, I'm always out there looking for something new and exciting, and so I like the new series. So yeah.
You make me laugh, because you're out there creating relational databases and doing notes. So of course.
Sorry for the sun, by the way. The sun's decided to rise finally in Seattle, so must be the time.
Sun
for us
is out
to
in
end.
Seattle. It's a gold star day.
Fair
Yeah,
Fair
exactly.
Well, thank you so much. Claire Gribbin is the at Amazon Web Services, the head of Worldwide SMB Segment Strategy, and my co-host Ben Schreiner is AWS spokesperson, ambassador, evangelist, head of business innovation for go-to-market for U.S. commercial sales at AWS. Hey, you guys were great. Thank you so much. It was a real fun conversation.
Thanks, Gene.
Thank you, Gene.
Everyone, you have been watching AWS's Ahead in the Cloud, a podcast for small business owners and managers that want to stay current on technology. This podcast is brought to you by the AWS Connected Community. It's a free online community that's built by AWS, powered by its members, where you can get free expert advice, training, and peer-to-peer interaction to help with all of your technology questions. I know there's a long URL, but guys, if you want to find the AWS Connected Community, just Google AWS Connected Community and you'll get right there. Again, thank you to my guests. This is a great conversation. Hope you guys all enjoyed this. We will be back again soon with another episode of Ahead in the Cloud. We'll see you soon. Take care.